Namaskar, Mr. Chauhan.
Namaskar.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Okay. Welcome to my show, Valor and Wisdom. I'm your host. My name is Puneet Singh Mehra. And as all of you know, we have our special guest, Mr. Jai Chauhan, who is the author, a retired judge, and a lawyer. So, Mr. Chauhan, how are you?
Great, I'm fine. Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chauhan. So, for today, again, I'm here with an untold history which was buried for a long period of time. And for today, I'm going to tell you about a great king who was the savior of the religion Zoroastrians. His name was Maharaja Jadi Rana, or in short version, Jadi Rana. Yes. So before I'm going to tell you the story, let me tell you something about the Zoroastrians. In the 21st century, we say Parsis. So Zoroastrian worship fire temple, and the Zoroastrian they celebrate their New Year on 21st March, and the name of the New Year Noraz. No means new, and the Raj means day. So what happened in 8th century? It was an old time. Arab invaded Persia, and the Arab invaders they start persecuting the Zoroastrian people. In that time, which some of the Zoroastrians they flee away from the Persia to save their religion and their people. And most of the Zoroastrians they stay near the place named Homrus. Like I heard about it, the place name is Homrus. And to save their religion, they stay there for a quite period of time. During that time, they have one wise dastur, you can say a Zoroastrian priest, who was an astrologer, and he can also read the stars. So one day he looked at the stars and he said that the time allotted us in this place was coming to an end by looking at the stars. And he said we need to go to the place named India or Bharat as soon as possible. So now somehow they get the ship, and the ship has women, child, priests, and men. So they had to struggle a lot of things. They had to cross the river, like the weather was not so good, but somehow they reached to the port of Gujarat in India. So what happened? That time Gujarat was ruled by the king Maharaja Jadi Rana. And Jaidhav is one of the most noble, wise, and a free-minded king. So when the Zoroastrians reached to the port of Gujarat, the priest he went over there to meet Maharaja Jadi or JD, and he offered him the gifts and the fruits, and he also blessed him. After the meeting, the Zoroastrian priest said, I quote, O King of Kings, please give us a place in this city. We are strangers seeking protection who have arrived in your town. We only come here for the sake of our religion, and we heard about you that you are the most compassionate and the more kind king. Which Maharaja Jadi he was, but still he has some doubt about the Zoroastrians. So what he did, Mr. Chauhan, is a famous incident between a Hindu and a Zoroastrians, means the Parsis. So what he did, he bring a vessel filled with milk to very top. Maharaja Jadi said his kingdom was filled with the people just like the vessel was filled with milk. And there was no more space left. And there was one wise Zoroastrian priest. What he did, the most cunning thing I ever heard. What he did, he added some sugar into the milk and the sugar dissolved. In which the priest said they would live among the people just like the sugar dissolved in the milk. The Parsi, he also added, the Parsi would not cause any disharmony. In fact, they would make the life sweeter with their presence, in which Maharaja Jaidhav Singh, he got very impressed by the Zoroastrian priests, and he allotted them a place in Gujarat, which name was SAGA, where all Zoroastrian people lived and flourished happily. So that's the kindness and the compassion of the Indian kings. And what happened afterwards, when the Arab got this information that the Zoroastrians are taking shelter in India, they came with a dream to persecute the remaining Zoroastrians. But the Arabs, they didn't know one thing about India. Between Zoroastrians and Arabs, there is a big wall standing in front of them. And the wall name is Rajputs. The Rajput was well. Then the Rajput crushed the Arab invaders, and their dreams always remains dreams to come to India and to persecute Zoroastrians. They are not quite successful for that time. All the Zoroastrians flourished very happily. You know, Mr. Chauhan, I'll tell you, I have many Parsis friends in India. I'll tell you one incident. So there's one girl, like, she took me to her place, and her mom and dad, her parents, they love me a lot. They say like, oh Puneet, how are you? How's good? I'm like, everything is good. But the most fascinating part, when I met her grandmother, like her grandmother, she saw me and she was like, are you a Rajput? And I was quite shocked. I was like, oh. I was like, yes. So she said, thank you for this country, and thank you for you and your ancestors who protect us from the invaders every single time. She even said that you people, you give up your own life to protect an outsider. And I told her one thing, like, see, let me tell you something about our people. When someone comes to our family, even the death cannot touch them. We know how to take care of our family. It doesn't matter what religion, what person, or what caste you are. Is the incident which even happened to me. And Mr. Chauhan, I can proudly say that the Zoroastrians, the Parsis, are one of the most loyal, trustworthy, and the wealthiest community in India. I'll tell you some the most famous Parsi. The first one we all know, JRD, Jamshed Tata, and the second one is Ratan Tata, the person who owns the Jaguar and Land Rover. And my favorite, the legendary Chief of Army, Air Force, Navy, Field Marshal SHFJ Sam Manekshaw. And there are more, Air Chief Marshal Fali Homi Mazer. And not to forget, the India nuclear programmer Homi Baba. And there are many Bollywood actors like Boman Irani, John Abraham, and many more. So that is the story, savior of Zoroastrian, Maharaja Jadi Rana. And you know, Mr. Chauhan, I can put a stamp on it, and I can tell you the priest words, what he said to the Maharaja, that they dissolve in the community and they bring sweetness, 100% true. So that is the story of Maharaja Jadi Rana and the Zoroastrian. So what do you think about this history part, Mr. Chauhan?
I'm excited, Puneet, actually, that you've dug out so much history. This incident, I'll tell you my side of how I see the story that you've narrated. Yeah. First of all, actually, I remember some years ago, or I would say almost, perhaps 10 or 15 years ago, I had a niece in India, and I asked her, actually, do you know the story of how the Zoroastrians came to India? And did you know that these people settled in Gujarat and they left their Parsi language, which they'd used in Iran, and the family did not know the story. So I said to them, this town called Sanjan on the port on the west coast of India is in Gujarat. Yes. And now those people that we call Parsi in India are the descendants of the people who were Zoroastrians persecuted in their own society. The whole, and I said to her, actually, that, do you know the story? She said, no. I'm very happy that you have brought this story out today. And when we write this and upload it in a social media, I'm going to send it to her. And I'm also going to send this video to the number of Parsi friends that I have got to know, including a family in Richmond Hill. And one of the daughters came, I tell you a story, one of the daughters came and learned with me immigration law. And then she was sitting in my office, another really Iranian person saw her and spoke to her in Farsi. And she did not know Farsi because this community has lived in India now, lost their Persian, the Farsi language,
Parsi, yes.
and now they speak Gujarati because they landed in Gujarat. So this story goes back almost 1,000 years now. And just to give an overview to the people listening to us today, is that the Muslim religion came about in about 600 AD after Jesus Christ. And then it's in the next few hundred years that from Makkah, Medina in Saudi Arabia, the religion expanded and Arabs took it to Iran, where they took over in the Zoroastrian religion that had actually was used by the Persian Empire, which was a major empire in history, was conducted. And many people do not realize that this religion actually supported the empire history of Persia. And they'd taken over many parts of the Middle East, actually, including Egypt, that they had conquered as an empire. So the Persian Empire is well known in history. But this story that you narrated, Puneet, today is not well known. So our job is to dig out those pieces of history and let the world know. And we have social media today from which we can broadcast it to any part of the world. So this dialogue between you and me can go around the whole world. And I think all the friends that you know and that I know, we want them to understand this part of the history. But the part of valor and wisdom that you want to advocate and show to the people is this part. There is one thing for a community to come to India. But another thing that you mentioned, which is a value system that we want to explore in history. What did Rajputs like you and me, we are originally the Rajput community, Chauhans are Rajputs.
Yes.
And then what did they do to preserve some values that if you come to their family, if you come to their country, as India has done, India has welcomed everybody, is a welcoming history. They have welcomed Christianity. There's a large number of Christians there. There are a large number of Muslims living in India. There is just about every religion that Jewish, you can imagine.
Sikhism,
Jewish,
Jain, Bahi community, everyone. I know everyone over there.
I have seen one of the oldest synagogues in India.
Yes.
And I went inside. It was exact replica of a synagogue. And I remember actually being there with my son. And we saw, and there was somebody, an American woman actually visiting this particular synagogue. So in different words, apart from the valor of this Maharaja, who welcomed in Gujarat, the Parsi community, called them Parsi because they were in Gujarati language, the people from Persia were called Parsi.
Parsis, yes.
So in the Indian language, Gujarati, in India, they're known as Parsis. In Iranian language, they're called Zardusht in Farsi. New. Yeah, this is new because I know a lot of Iranian people.
Thank you. I learned something.
Yes, but I think that, but they've lost the language. But they had one more thing that you didn't say, is that they told the Maharaja that we will preserve our religion, but we will not ask other people to follow our religion. So
yes,
what they
that
did,
is true.
Yes, what they did, they intermarried. So the reason why I told you the incident that this Iranian thought that this person who looked exactly like him, then he thought she was Persian, but she was not. She has become, the Zoroastrians and the Parsi became a part of the Indian community, but they intermarried and maintained their own identity. But today, because they've done it, and they intermarry within their group, their population is declining. So I think that one of the problems that the community is facing is that their numbers are declining actually. The religion, which is now spread still around the world. So more Parsi were very educated people in India, and you have pointed out that that what they have accomplished with Tata, who owns the Jaguar in England, that the English people in the Western media does not tell you that all the Jaguar that you're driving, and it is one of the prestige cars, which I also wanted to drive. I now drive the Jaguar, by the way. Was my dream to have it as a barrister in England. So in terms of the car in England, it was a prestige car in England. And now an Indian family, and they were asked, actually, do you see yourself as Indian or do you see yourself as Parsis? And he said, we are Indian people. So I think just like we migrate to Canada and become Canadian citizens, this is an interesting migration history where the Parsis became Indian people and accomplished a huge amount, as you pointed out, in arts, in business, and in military, and have become a part of the Indian community. But as an example, actually, of what they accomplished as immigrants to India and contributed to the Indian society.
Yes.
And I think that if you look at the other communities like the British, they didn't become part of the Indian society, although there were a lot of Anglo-Indians now who are about 1 million in population. But England never shared their culture and made it India as a part of their culture. So we made it, understood their culture, and now become part of their Western civilization through the British influence of India. But they never amalgamated and became a part of our society. So I think it's an important lesson for history to understand how Gujarati Rajputs reacted to welcome the Parsis. And it's a very good story to tell. It was a fun to chat with you.
Sure, Mr. John. And not even welcome, also they protected him from all the invaders, like the Arab invaders. Like they all tried to come to India to like prosecute the remaining Zoroastrians. But the Rajputs, that's what like her grandmother told me, you are the people who save us. You gave your own life for the outsider. And she's really thankful for me. And one more thing, she also gave me that Parsi's cap. I don't know what's that called, but I forgot the name. But she gave me also that Parsi cap. In India, I used to have. But yeah, so that's one more part of our history, which was buried for a long time. So whoever watching this video, know your history, learn from your history, and history is not just about the Mughal era and the British. You know, Mr. Chauhan, in books in India, if you go to any school, our history starts from Mughal and ends with British. That's it. That's our history.
So let me explain that part, Punit, actually. What we want to do in this program, and I think anybody listening, we want you to circulate this in your other people, because we want the Indian people to know that their history taught in India in Indian schools are not limited to the Mughal period and the British period. Our history is colorful, full of value systems actually, and it goes back to one of the oldest civilizations in the world. So we have covered some parts of it in previous videos, and I hope you see them under valor and wisdom. If you type it in the YouTube, you will see these videos. And at one stage, I want you, Puneet, to keep them in a kind of a whole sequence so that people can watch all the videos at one time and understand their own history. So the idea is that I think from my point of view, I want to encourage your generation in their 20s, that they're now building India actually. And India will be reviving after being a major economic powerhouse for 1,500 years. It was brought down to ashes by the British occupation in that time frame. But India is going back again and will be a major power in the world actually. So if you look at the military today, the fourth largest army, the second biggest by numbers, nuclear power, and I think today India can defend itself against all the other people to keep their history alive, and will be a role model to the rest of the world in the way they've accommodated all religions and have been a peaceful force in this world. So that was a great story, and enjoyed sharing it with you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chauhan.
Okay, namaskar.
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 Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.